Today I want to talk about workflow, but before I get into any specific workflow, I want to talk about improving workflow in general, because for better or worse, I'm always experimenting, trying new things to try to make my work easier. And odds are, even if you've been doing something for years, if you stop and think about it, you can probably find something to improve about your process. And I think workflow problems tend to fall into two main categories: frustrations and time sinks. For example, looking at video production, when I first started doing this, my biggest frustration was that Vegas kept crashing on me. So I switched to different software, and it made my life so much less stressful. And on the time sync side, I realized just a few weeks ago that I could save time editing by using multiple timelines. So I do my main content editing on one timeline without worrying about the intro and outro overlays, and then I assemble everything on a separate timeline. That way, most of the time, I'm only dealing with a single video track and can't accidentally delete elements that I didn't mean to. But I think it's time to practice what I'm preaching and stop and think about what my current workflow issues are. So my biggest frustration is getting through these talking to camera segments because, as I said last time, I'm always stumbling over my words. And I think the best thing I can do to help with that is actually to learn to ad-lib better based on bullet points rather than having a pre-written script. It's very tempting earlier in the week to start gathering my thoughts about what I'm going to talk about in the devlog by writing a script, but that's often counterproductive because if I don't finish what I was planning on doing, I have to rewrite the script anyway. And I think in general, when I do ad-lib without a pre-written script, it tends to come out a little bit more natural and I stumble a lot less. So I'm going to try to stick to bullet points going forward. And then when I thought about it, I realized the setup before each recording session had some unnecessary time sinks as well, because I was always moving things around. Moving a microphone stand, moving a lamp into a better position for video lighting. So I wondered if I could lay out my room in a way where I wouldn't have to do that. And I was thinking about rearranging some things anyway, because as I mentioned last time, I'm looking for a new DAW. And some of the options I was considering are PC only, so I thought maybe I should switch my Mac and PC around so I could try them out. And besides, if I didn't find a new DAW that I liked, my fallback option would be to go back to Reason, which doesn't have performance problems on PC. So I decided to give it a try, and then, oh, well, that throws a wrench in things. So apparently the driver for my latest synth blue screens on Windows 8, and I could try Windows 10, but the Windows-specific DAWs I tried really didn't appeal to me that much, so I decided to just switch back. Sometimes these experiments just don't pan out. But it wasn't a complete waste of time, because in the process of moving things around, I did make some other changes. My Cintiq is now more readily accessible and doubling as a semi-permanent side monitor. The Peak is in a better place and has a dedicated MIDI controller for it. My lights are in a better position where I don't have to move them every time I record, and even the microphone is on a better stand that can actually hold it in a better position by itself without needing to prop it up on something. So my takeaway from all this is I think it's worth it once in a while to just stop and think about your workflow, find those frustrations and time sinks, and think about what you might be able to do to address them. So for more specific workflows, I might as well start with video production since that's sort of what I've been talking about, but I will talk about programming workflow a bit later. So I guess the starting point for my new and improved video workflow is to write up those bullet points, and for now I'm using a cross-platform free note-taking program called Notion. It's pretty buggy, but I like the fact that I can organize things in arbitrarily deep hierarchies, I can insert images and other media, and I can even have table views for organizing whatever kind of information I want. So right now I'm using it for pretty much all of my projects, and it does enough right that I can tolerate the bugs, at least for now. Before I start recording, I open up my bullet points on the side monitor of my PC, which I can easily reposition to be behind the camera. Then for the lights, most of the bulbs in this room are Philips Hue, so I call up a preset scene for my devlogs. Then I just turn on my preamp, fire up the DAW, start an audio recording, and lastly, start the camera. Once I get through everything I want to say, I pop the SD card out of my camera, put it in the back of my iMac, and then copy it over to a folder that I create for each vlog. Then I'll export the audio from my DAW to the same folder, and pull everything into DaVinci Resolve. There I open a template project, save it as a new project for each individual vlog, add my clips to the main content timeline, and use the waveforms to line everything up so that the video and audio are in sync. Then I'll usually spend a few hours editing that down and figuring out where I want to add visual aids. If I need any gameplay footage, I usually record that on Mac, so I pull my latest changes from Git, rebuild, and make sure everything still works. This also helps catch any platform-specific issues pretty early on. And then on Mac I don't need any third-party programs to record video of my screen, it's just Command-Shift-5. For diagrams and annotated screenshots, I usually use Pixelmator Pro. Although I do prefer Paint.net on Windows, it's just not worth switching back and forth between machines while I'm in the middle of editing. Once I've got the main content edited, I just need to update the devlog number in the intro overlay, assemble the main timeline, add music, check the levels, and export. Then I start the upload to YouTube, put together a thumbnail while I wait, finalize video details, and then usually schedule it to go live the next day. So now I'll try to go through my dev workflow, which I had to really think about because it's something I'm not usually very conscious of. For anything complicated, I usually start by planning on paper. Often, but not always, I'll start with the Godot side of things. So for instance, I might be editing an editor for objects in the game. As I write the GDScript side of things, I try to imagine the interface for the DLL that I would want to have, the functions I want to be able to call. And then once that's done, I switch over to Visual Studio to implement that interface. Once that's done, I'll try to build it and fix any compiler errors that might come up, and then it's over to Godot for testing. And once I've got some kind of meaningful progress I want to preserve, I'll commit it to Git, and then usually once per day, I'll push it to the remote. I'm currently using GitHub because it's free, easy to use, and it's always a good idea to have off-site backup. Aside from that, the only workflow thing I can think of to talk about is debugging. For crashes, just-in-time debugging is amazing because it'll just prompt you to attach a debugger when the problem occurs and you can see exactly what happened. If I know where something's going wrong but it's not causing a crash, I'll usually use a debug break or an assert, and then just-in-time debugging will be triggered by that. Or if I just notice something going weird in the moment while the game is running and I want to take a closer look, I can always attach the debugger manually. And that's pretty much all I can think of to say about workflow, aside from perhaps music production, but I think I'll save that for a later video on my music channel. So I didn't get to save and load this week, and I don't think I will next week either, because in the next video I want to focus on new art and custom shaders, but I will get there eventually. In the meantime, it always helps me out if you hit the like button, spread the word, and subscribe if you haven't already, and of course, thanks for watching.